see it?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so the title of my research was Readiness and Willingness of the Industries in Accepting Work Immersion Activities of Senior High School Students. So once again, my name is Serges M. Budomo. I live here in the Philippines, and now I'm connected with Tarlac State University. So just a quick background about my study. Um, Way back 2016, this was the year wherein the senior high school curriculum in the Philippines was first implemented. So it was the very first time to have grade 11 and grade 12 levels in the Philippines to complete the so-called K to 12 curriculum here in the Philippines. So I had this study to determine the readiness and willingness of industries. Okay, so in the Philippine education, work immersion as it applies to the K to 12 curriculum, K there stands with kinder. So kindergarten to grade 12 curriculum in the Philippines is defined in the Department of Education Order number 40 series of 2015 refers to the part of the senior high school curriculum consisting of 80 hours of hands-on experience. So it is like the on-the-job training done in the university or work simulation which the grades 11 and 12 students will undergo to expose them to the actual workplace setting and to enrich the competencies provided by the school. Okay, so since this is the very first time to conduct this activity, I am very curious, and it gave me an idea to undergo this research paper. So giving an immersion to the high school students is totally a new concept to the school administrations here in the Philippines. Hence, the study on readiness and willingness of industries or enterprises in accepting work immersion activities of the senior high school students is really suitable for the present need of the school where I am connected before. That was in the Department of Education. Okay, here are the questions that will be answered in my study. How are the needed work immersion requirements of senior high school described in terms of the classification of the industry and the skills needed by the industry as well? Second statement of the problem, how is the readiness of industries in compliance with the DepEd requirements described in terms of the following? So the Department of Education laid down requirements that should be met by the enterprises. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So facilities, alignment, proximity, legal requirements, scope of operation, and presence of corporate social responsibility. The third one is how is the willingness of industries described in terms of, so this describe their willingness, the number of interns needed by the industry or the enterprise, the students' qualification, what do they want, the gender preferences, and the availability of slots for internships or work immersion. Fourth one, what problems may be encountered by the industries related to the immersion activities of senior high school? And the fifth and last statement of the problem, what recommendations may be proposed to address the anticipated problem? Okay, here is the scope and delimitation of the study. This study gathered data from 30 DTI registered establishments in the municipality. Specifically, this was done in the municipality of Hirona Tarlac. So DTI stands for the Department of Trade and Industry. These industries are classified as service, merchandising, manufacturing, and cooperatives or microfinance institutions whose work requirements are related to the specializations of students. So we have different specializations of students in the senior high school. We have the business related curriculum, the humanities, and technical vocational. Okay, the research design used in this study was descriptive research design because it will describe needed work immersion requirements of students and the readiness and willingness of enterprises and accepting work immersion activities of senior high school students, particularly in Corazon C. Aquino High School in Hirona, Tarlac. Okay, the research will utilize the indirect method of gathering data because a questionnaire was used as an instrument to describe the readiness and willingness of the industry in accepting work immersion activities of senior high school students. Okay, so the researcher developed a questionnaire instrument that was validated by the experts. And this is the statistical treatment used. Okay. So the respondents of the study were composed of 30 business establishments in the town of Hirona. Okay, based on the findings of this study, the following conclusions are derived. So majority of the industry respondents are service industry that need office assistance in cooking and in coding as well. So second, conclusion is the majority of the industry are ready in accepting work immersion activities of senior high school students in terms of facilities. So they are ready in terms of facilities, the alignment of the skills needed by the industry as well as the skills needed by the students. Proximity, nearby establishments, the legal requirements, so those establishments in this study complied with requirements, scope of operation, and presence of corporate social responsibility. The third one, the industry need interns and willing to accommodate interns or the senior high school students who are to undergo work immersion. The problems that may be encountered by the school in relation to work immersion activities of senior high school are the following: the limited number of industry which are willing to accommodate interns. The skills needed by the senior high school students may not be available among possible industry partners because the Department of Education entails that the industry should be just nearby within the proximity of the school. And if those industry or the necessary skill needed by the senior high school student is not available, then they should look for other industry which are far from the school. Inadequate facilities like laboratories and equipment in the industry where senior high school students may undergo work immersion and programming. Scheduling of senior high school students who will undergo work immersion. Okay, this will be the problems that may be encountered by the industry in relation to work immersion activities of senior high school. Facilities are Facilities like laboratories and equipment may not be available for some interns. So there are just facilities that are okay for the industry to be used by the interns, but there are some which are somehow protected or they cannot allow students to use. Limited room for interns. Some industries or enterprises only allows 2 or 3 interns or only one, so there are limited room for them. So we need to look for another industry that will cater them. Work distraction or disruption, which may be encountered during internship, because these are students and they're just learning about the work. So they might be the cause of distraction. Question of quality of output in case interns may be allowed to substitute the regular employee, and time management in terms of scheduling of interns. Okay, so the following recommendations were derived based on the conclusion. The school should look for other industry with work requirements other than industry that need office assistance and coding and cooking that are aligned with the other specializations of the senior high school students of Corazon C. Aquino High School by conducting an ocular inspection or on-site assessment and or giving a questionnaire instruments to the industry that will determine the line of business or the classification and the skills needed by the industry. Okay, another recommendation, brochures and pamphlets should be used to inform these ready industry about the existence of work immersion activities. Since this was the first time to conduct work immersion activities, the industry might not knowledgeable about the existence of such activity. So I recommend the researcher recommended here brochures or pamphlets just for information dissemination. In addition, they could conduct orientation or seminars to the industry to inform the objectives or the purpose of work immersion activities among the senior high school students. Okay, another recommendation that we have here, the school head teachers as well, master teachers, and other people involved in the work immersion activities of senior high school students should encourage and explain to the industry by conducting an orientation, seminar, or giving pamphlets or brochures about the benefits of accepting work immersion activities of senior high school students, and also to make them realize that through welcoming and accepting students, they could contribute to the professional growth of senior high school students, or the materialization of this, the objective of this activity. In the absence of possible workplace for work immersion of the senior high school students, simulations could be done as well as research or other culminating activity should be utilized so students' learning can still be applied. Say, for example, in the field of business. So we have a track or curriculum under business subject. So they could, instead of going outside and having their on-the-job training or work immersion, they could put up a business simulations inside the school in replacement with the work immersion, just in case there's no industry that could cater those business students. Also, the school may partner with the state universities and colleges. State we have here colleges or universities that also accept interns or work immersion students. So secondary schools here can top universities and colleges as long as they allow, where complete laboratories and facilities are available. Okay, so thank you. So that's the end of my presentation.
Mr. Fung, it's still mute.
Hello?
The mic. So, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay. So, what you have talked about belong to a kind of work integrated education. Okay. So, which is a very important part of modern education, not only at universities but also at some high schools. Okay. So, are there any questions from the audience?
Yes, I want to ask one question.
Please.
Hi, sirs. I am Amelia
Hello.
from Indonesia. It's a nice presentation.
Wow,
Okay.
thank you so much.
So I want to ask why you use your respondent as a senior high school. I means like I do not know if I'm not wrong. It's from Philippines, right? Like in
Yes.
Indonesia, we still want to upgrade our students to go to the university before they go to the industry. So what is your suggestions why you use senior high school students? It's the first question. And the second, how about the future research, the limitation and future research of your research? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question, Miss Amelia. Let me just clarify it. Senior high school students were not my respondents. My respondents were the enterprises. Um, I would like to determine, or the researcher would like to determine whether the different industries that surrounds our school are ready and willing to accept work immersion of senior high school students. It's
Ah,
very, yes. It's very new here in the Philippines. It was just started last 2016, the senior high school curriculum, grade 11 and grade 12. So part of the curriculum of that is going outside or having the on-the-job training, or what we call here the work immersion. This is only 80 hours. So if we're just going to divide that 80 hours to 10 days, to 8 hour a day, that that will only for 10 days. So it's very short because they are still senior high. I mean, they're still secondary students. They are not yet university students. So it is only the way of the Department of Education here in the Philippines to show somehow to the secondary students what will be their job, their chosen job, the careers they want in the future. So again, I repeat, the respondents are the enterprises.
I'm sorry, sir. Says the one that I said it's about the object. Yeah, not the respondent. I'm
Yeah.
missay before. Yeah. So if I'm not wrong, so they just use it as internship, right? Not to work immerse from the senior high school going to the industry, right?
Yes. These students can use the data gathered from here, or the school administration as well could use the data gathered from this research to determine who are those industry that are ready and willing to accept.
Yeah, because you know my questions, right? Because in your high school, we still want them to go to the higher education, like
Yes,
university. Yeah,
yes,
it's
yes.
very important because if they just from senior high school and go to the industry directly, I think some of the knowledge is not complete enough for
It's
them to
not yet.
go
It's
the
not yet.
industry. That's
It's
my
not yet.
point. Yeah, I know
Yes.
the 30 industry that you used before. I, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
it's okay.
And about the limitation and the future research, maybe you can explain to me about your future research
Okay.
limitation.
So let me just say this: the work immersion activity is only part of the senior high school. But after this, after they graduate senior high school, they will, it's their, it's their somehow choice if they're going to enroll in the university. So about the limitation, I can't think of any other. There's some who approached me, who contacted me for an advanced research, and they used my research as a basis. So somehow they want to determine other factors or other side of work immersion. I'm not just, I just allowed them to read my research, to somehow let them see my work or my study. But or there are other things that they could explore about this research.
Sir, I'm sorry, just a little bit. Do you think that your research will not suggest the high school students to be work directly from senior high school, not going to the higher education? Do
I'm
you
a,
don't think so?
I I don't think so, because this work immersion will only allow students to observe.
To observe.
Yes, to observe the work, the actual work of the industry, how they operate, how they do their work every day. So this will just motivate them, and we receive good feedbacks from the students, because they were very happy to see the actual operation of every businesses that they went to, and they're inspired, to finish their university studies and work in the future. So I don't think it will just distract them to not go in the university anymore and work directly. It's still their choice, because here in the Philippines we have somehow different pathways after senior high school. We have the employment, we have the university, and we have the business. So they can already, or the mid skill, they can acquire the middle, somehow mid skill, we call it mid skill, because they will learn a lot of skill under the technical vocational program of the senior high school. Entrepreneurship, they can start their own business, and they could go to college. It's still their choice. We cannot somehow we cannot force them to, hey, you go to, we advise them to go to college, university, because there's nothing more important than having that college degree, right? Or university
Okay.
degree.
Okay. Thank you, Sir. Thank you, Mr. Fong.
Thank you,
Okay,
Miss
thank you.
Amelia.
Okay, very nice discussion.
Thank
So,
you, Mr. Fong.
are there any other questions? Okay, so if there's no question, we can move on to the next paper. So the next paper is by Chao Th. Dao from Vietnam National University. So is Chao Th. Dao here? So no response. I think he's not here. Okay, so no problem. So we skip this one. And then there's one more presenter joining this section. So the presenter is from session A2 originally, Jiang Him Na.
Yes, sir.
Is Jiang Him Na?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm here, sir.
Okay, so you are here, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, good. So are you ready to start your presentation?
Yes,
So
sir. Should I share my screen now?
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Yeah. Yep. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah, perfect.
So I am going to talk about the pesticide removal by varying the pH level. So, to move on, I am going to first introduce the background of my research and my experiments, and then second, talk about the materials and methods that I've used, and third, talk about the results and output, and then talk about the conclusion and possible ramification and also the practical uses of my research. So firstly, about the introduction. So I am personally very into the agricultural stuff like organic chemistry, and then I saw the news that there is a 38 cows passed away because they ate rice straws that includes a pesticide that is very toxic for them. And then this is not the only case. There were a lot of cases in the agricultural fields about the pesticide residues, and they're not removed very well. And also, they use very they use some substances that are not confirmed to be safe or to be effective to remove the pesticides. So I was kind of thinking I can make a substance that can actually remove the pesticide in the first end used in the um, farms and something. So moving on to my materials and methods. So before introducing my materials, I'm going to explain about the buffer solution. So I use the buffer solution in this experiment because buffer solutions are a mixture of a weak basis or acid that conjugate counterparts. So the presence of the weak acids and bases result in a solution with a stable pH resistance to change, and it is evidenced by this graphs. So it is about the buffer solution, the changes of pH. So it is very effective in my experiment because the pH level doesn't really change much. And yeah, that's why I chose buffer solution, not the other solutions, like such as using strong acids and bases. So for my materials, I firstly prepared tomatoes because um, tomatoes are very easy to get it from the grocers or something. And also I used the pesticides, which is named as malathion. I purchased it from the internet. It is easy to get it. And then I used two different buffer solution. Firstly, it is a buffer solution made by an acetic acid with a sodium acetate, and second, it is about the phosphoric acid with potassium phosphate with different pH levels from pH 3 to pH 11, and the varying is 2, pH 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. And I use vinegar, salt, and baking soda to experiment other substances, or whether they can also remove the pesticide effectively, better than the buffer solutions that I'm testing. And I use tap water, wooden stick, electric scale, pesticide detection devices, distilled water, and a spear for my experiments. So for my hypothesis, I believe that the solution removes the alkali solution removes the pesticide because the alkaline solution neutralizes the pesticides, and I thought that. And for this experiment, my independent variable was the pH level of the solution and the type of the solutions, and the dependent variable was the remaining pesticides. So the control variables in this experiment was room temperature, types of pesticides, concentration of the alkali and acid solution, type of tomatoes, evenness of spraying, amount of
Walang
pesticide
tinan mo
remaining
dyan.
in the
Dyan.
tomato. Can you please mute? Oh yeah, sure. So firstly, for my method, it is firstly to remove the remaining pesticide in the tomato by washing it in tap water. The washing needs to be continued until the pesticide remaining is negative. I tested with my pesticide detector. The pesticide detection, it will detect the residual pesticide. I did this for half an hour to an hour. And I did this because of the validation. If the pesticide, so when we purchase the tomatoes, the pesticide remaining is not all the same. So I want to make it all fair. And that's why I removed all the pesticides. And secondly, I put the pesticide inside a beaker and dipped the tomato once inside it because the experiment needs to be fair. And the whole body of the tomato should be dipped. And the pesticide was an aqueous solution. And then I recorded the dipped tomatoes remaining pesticides using the pesticide detector. And then I created a buffer solution by mixing acetic acid with sodium acetate. And then in school, there was a buffer solution made by an acetic acid and sodium acetate, so I used it. And I measured from pH 3 to pH 11. And then, so if you put the solution inside a sprayer, for example, pH 3, I will spray them evenly on the tomato. And then I wash the tomato with the tap water. And then I record the remaining pesticide by detecting it with pesticide detection kit. And I compared it with the result with the first step 3, which is about the first one, the non-removed pesticide tomato. And then I did this for every solution, for every pH solutions. And then I repeat this. And then I also did this with the other ones. It was the phosphoric acid with potassium phosphate, and I did it with this vinegar, and then salt, and then baking soda with this. And then I found out the optimum pH level for the solution. And yeah. So moving on. Oh. Wait, I think there's an issue with my, oh yeah, sure. So for the results, I can say that pH 11 was the most effective pH for my experiment. So it basically tells, so the if the kit's color is blue, it represents that the pesticide is negative, and if it is closer to white, it represents that the remaining pesticide is positive, and it's much more. So we can clearly see that pesticides that are not removed is very white and very slightly blue. And then for pH 3, which is very acidic, it is removed very well. We can see a blue color slightly. However, there are some white around it. So we cannot clearly say that it's very effective. And also for pH 5, there are some removes However, it is not that effective. And for pH 7, which is basically neutral, is it can actually remove the pesticide. However, it is not effective as the alkaline solution, such as pH 9 and pH 11. And we can clearly see that pH 11 has a blue color, which means that it almost successfully removed the pesticides. And also for pH 9, it didn't successfully remove it, but it's very effective. So we can conclude that alkali solution is much better to remove the pesticides rather than using neutralized solution or the acid solution. So as the conclusion, I think by this, I believe that alkali solution can be made as a pesticide removal, and then for the practical uses, I think it can be a first-hand removed use in a farm, and then they can use a pH controlled substances instead of other chemicals, which are not very healthy, I guess, or not well known, the substances. And also it can be used domestically in our home. People can use pH controlled substances in their home rather than using other remedies such as baking soda or salt water, which is ineffective, I guess. And for the results, I didn't include the vinegar, salt water, and other things. However, it all resulted that the pH 11 was the optimum pH, and yeah, and that's why I think alkali solution is the best, because baking soda is slightly alkaline, and compared to the other solution, which was salt water, the baking soda removed better than the salt water. The baking soda removed better than salt water. I think it is from the pH level differences, and these are my references. And if you have further questions, you can really ask me.
Thank you very much. Okay, so it's a very interesting approach to solve a practical agricultural problem. So are there any questions from other participants? Okay, I have two questions for you. So I'm not an expert in agriculture, but usually, according to my own understanding, there could be many types of pesticide. So
Yes, sir.
does your solution or approach, the effectiveness of your solution or approach depend on the types of pesticide in the agricultural product?
Yeah. So is that a question?
Yeah, this is the first question. And then also my second
Yep.
question is that if you so in practice, if we are going to use your solution, then the farmers may need to spray the solution directly onto the farm. So will you change the pH value of the soil? Because we know that the pH value of the soil is also very important to the productivity of farming, right? So is it going to have some other side effect on the productivity by changing the quality of the soil? So these are my two questions.
So firstly, you told me that it might be a limitation. It might be limited to this pesticide, which is malathion.
Yeah, I don't know, because there are many types of pesticide, right? So I'm not sure whether the same solution will also be effective to other type of pesticide.
Yeah, I do agree into the extent. However, I did another experiment with other type of pesticides, which is called thiophan and methyl, and then it also resulted same as that the alkali solution are much more effective than other solutions such as acidic solutions, or also like neutralized solution or other like salt water
that's
system.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have done some control experiment already, right?
Yeah, with the pesticides. This is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
good.
representative of the pesticide. So yeah.
I see. Okay.
And also, what was your second question again?
Yeah, second question is about because your approach basically is to change the pH value, right?
Yeah.
To change the pH value, if you spray the solution directly on the farm, will it change the pH value of the soil?
I think some people might say that there might be some, I don't know, side effects such as changing pH level in soils. And since it is an alkali solution, I believe that there might be some side effects, possibly. However, I believe that it can also be controlled by using other things such as fertilizers, because fertilizer is slightly acidic, and if this is alkaline, and if that is and if the fertilizers, or I don't know, CaCO3, which is limestone, which is used to neutralize the lakes and soil. I think if we use another substances to neutralize the soil, I think it won't be problematic. And I think over that, rather than using other chemicals which are not very proven to be safe for our health, I believe using a solution that is controlled by pH is rather safer to the people and also for the agricultural things such as and
Yeah,
that's what I
thank you.
believe.
Yeah, thank you for your explanation.
Hello?
Yes.
We can use that fertilizer to different plants, right?
Pardon?
We can use that fertilizer to different kinds of plants.
Sir, it's not about the fertilizer, it's about the pesticide removal.
Oh, pesticide, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So it is compatible to a lot of plants, even it's edible or fruit bearing plants.
Yes.
Oh wow, that's good.
Is that a question or is that a compliment or?
A compliment as
Oh,
well.
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
It's very good. How much? How much is that? If you're going to produce such pesticide.
It's not about the pesticide, it's about the pesticide removal. So
Yes.
that's kind of
Oh,
different.
pesticide removal.
Yeah, it is removing the pesticide. However, I didn't exactly think about the cost of the substance.
Oh,
But,
you did not cost
I think
analysis.
it should be cheap because the agricultural process, it's all about our life, and if it is expensive, it will be approachable for the people. So I didn't specifically think about the
Yes.
it should be cheap enough. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Yes.